As gamers, we are currently at crossroads of a gaming trend going too far. And this is in relation to remasters and remakes. Now, in terms of remasters and remakes, I don't have any intrinsic problem with them per se. There is a remake, or rather a remaster for Suikoden 1 and 2 coming out in the near future from Konami. And these are games that I played as a child. They are very old RPGs, 2D sprites, and just not a very stellarly, awe-inspiringly, graphically intensive game. But the gameplay was great, the story's fantastic, and it holds a very strong thing in my heart. I absolutely adore this game. And them coming out is great because the games are actually quite rare, quite hard to get hold of, and there's a lot of people that never had a chance to play them. So them coming into a new age and maybe getting support for the franchise as a whole and getting the franchise restarted would be absolutely fantastic in my opinion. Then we have remakes. So you've got your Resident Evil 2 remake, your Resident Evil 3 remake, and things like your upcoming Silent Hill 2 remake, etc., etc. Resident Evil 4, I think, is getting remade as well. Now, when it comes to these games, you do have the fact that graphically they are left behind to time, and you can still play them to this day and you will have fun in them. But in terms of the way they look, they aren't the greatest, and them getting a spit and polish, getting redone from the ground up, because you have to get them redone from the ground up. The engines of these games are incompatible with today's graphics and today's rendering and everything. So they have to be built from the ground up. And when you build a game from the ground up and just redo it, then I think, yeah, that has merit. When you actually have to physically redo the entire game, it makes a lot of sense. So Resident Evil 2 and 3 received a lot of positive reviews, and I'm sure Silent Hill 2 will as well, and so will the Resident Evil 4. The games are redone in a way that Resident Evil's moved on from its old isometric top-down kind of look. So the games are different than what they were, and they're also the same because the stories haven't moved on a drastic amount. The stories are basically similar. They're not verbatim identical, but they're similar. And I feel like that's probably the best way to do it. Keep the heart of the game intact, but just tweak it enough that it's a new experience for players that played it before and players who are jumping into it now. You've got Final Fantasy VII's remake, which is a completely different game, but follows a same kind of narrative, more like a alternate reality rather than the specifically same game. But it is that kind of thing where the fans of the franchise will, pony up the money and get a different experience. And this is the core thing. Getting a different experience or sharing the experience with a wider audience because they didn't get that wider audience back in the day. And this is the thing that I think where remasters and remakes work. It's when you either provide that different experience on a known franchise or a known game, or you provide the nostalgia and a wider audience a new experience with the Suikoden remake, or rather remaster. But then we delve into some less stable territory. And with this, I'm talking more specifically about the Horizon Zero Dawn remaster, remake, whatever it's meant to be for the PS5. Now, the problem with that game is that it was out when I was in my previous house. Now, I wasn't there for more than, 6 years. I mean, me and my wife got married when we were in that house. And the problem with that being is that not enough time has passed for the graphics to be so far gone from what they were. There's no justification for remaking the game from the ground up. So all you're really doing with re-releasing Horizon Zero Dawn for PS5, or even probably on PC as well, is that you're just literally spit shining it. Literally just going, and then going, yeah, there you go, new game. And this is the kind of thing that Sony is wanting. They want people to buy this game again. And whether they're going to offer discounts to people that already own it, I doubt it. Um, it just seems very grotesque of a thing to do. There's no need for it. Just literally release the actual version of the game on the PS5 that exists now. You don't need to do anything to it. If you've got it on the PS4 from the eShop, then just let people download it on the PS5. What's the big deal? And again, I don't have a PS5, so I don't know if this is the case. If it's not the case, then yeah, there's a problem there. It's basically deliberately denying people the game to buy it again, essentially. And it just doesn't need it. It doesn't need to be remastered. It's not old enough of a game to be remastered. The graphic potential of the consoles hasn't moved on that far. And when you take into consideration that COVID put the entire world back about 2 years, you just take those 2 years off it and it's even less time. It just seems a very strange situation where they're just after money. And the problem with this being is if this works, it's going to open the floodgates to other companies that will do scummy tactics like this. And I know you could say that there are a lot of companies out there that already have these scummy tactics, like EA and Activision releasing Call of Duty and FIFA every year or so. And I kind of agree. I think Call of Duty being released over and over again when they make minor and not very many improvements or changes to the game seems a bit odd. And certainly with FIFA, I don't understand why it needs a yearly release instead of just patching it a little bit. Again, the graphics are not going to update that much. The players that are playing might change, but you can again just patch players in and out of games. It just seems very strange to me, and they're not games that I play, so I can't rightly comment fully on it. I do know that a lot of people say that there is not a huge amount of difference between some of them. And some, there is a massive amount of difference and a massive amount of hate or love for them based on things they add and or remove. But again, they could just patch these things in or out. And this is the thing about Horizon. They could just patch the game that exists already. They don't need to remaster it, just patch it. And yeah, you could say, well, they're putting money and time and effort into it. Yeah, but they're not making a whole new game. So if they re-release it, and there is two versions of the game, there is the original and the remaster, and both are charging you full price for them, then that's a bit, that it just strikes me as scummy. It's very scummy. And I think as gamers, we have to sort of put our foot down when it comes to things like this and just go, no. Why the hell would we want that? Because I don't want to see it happen with other games. And don't get me wrong, I've bought remasters in the past. I've got no problem with remasters. But it needs to be an older game. It needs to be a game that needs that, graphic overhaul. It needs to look better because it's dated or just isn't great. When it's a remake, it needs to be a remake. It needs to rebuild that game from the base up and create a whole new experience for the people that are there. But yeah, maybe that's just me.